So tonight, what I'm going to have us do, though, is do one more message looking at the idea of prayer and fasting. This whole month, we've been taking time to look at the idea of prayer, this idea of talking to God, that it is something we are invited to do, that we get to do, and that it serves an amazing purpose in our lives. So we've been talking about prayer the entire month, and last week we began to talk about prayer and fasting. This week, actually, we are also just creating space where if you've never practiced prayer and fasting, as a church, we're just calling this a week of prayer and fasting. Do we have anything super specific for it? Not necessarily, but we want to create space, because it's something that sometimes we just look and say, I want to do that one day. So we're just saying, hey, how about this week? You find a day. You find a time, and we create some space for it. So last week, we were talking about fasting, what it looks like, some practicalities around it. You want to be realistic with it. You know, fasting, even if you're unfamiliar with church and you're like, what is fasting? It's the fad diet that a lot of people do. It's intermittent fasting, that sort of a thing, right? Where people will go and they'll end up not eating. Some of you are like, did not catch that whatsoever. It's okay. It's where you're not eating something for a while. And so a lot of people practice things like intermittent fasting, which is great, but we also see, though, that it is a spiritual practice that we do. And so you might be someone in here who this week you're looking at it and you're saying, I want to practice this, I want to try this, but doing a full day fast might be daunting. Be like the early church. I'm not going to preach the whole message from last week all over again, but be like the early church. The way they oftentimes practiced fasting is they would forego meals, whether it was from sunrise to sundown, or they would end up fasting a meal throughout the day or things like that. They would find a way they could participate. And so if you're looking at it and you're saying, Caleb, I couldn't do 7 days of not eating, that's not what we're saying to do. That probably wouldn't be wise if you've never done something like that before. So let's be realistic. Let's pick something that we could do, and let's just see how God has some stuff for us. But with that being said, I'm going to talk about fasting even more. And we're going to look to Scripture to see how Jesus practiced fasting. We're going to actually get to see tonight why he says we should fast. And we're going to also see the purpose behind it, because we can say a lot of stuff about the what and the how, but if you don't get the why, then oftentimes you're not going to really enjoy doing it. So let's talk about the why tonight. Let's talk about the how. So let's look. Mark chapter 4, verses 1 to 11. Matthew chapter 4, not Mark. There we go. The other gospel that starts with an M. Matthew 4, 1 through 11. I'm going to read this for us tonight. It says this. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Jesus answered, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. If you are the Son of God, he said, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up by their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Jesus answered him, it is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their splendor. All this I will give you, he said, if you will bow down and worship me. Jesus said to him, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Then the devil left him, and angels came and attended to him. Man, Jesus was tempted. What a wild idea. An idea that oftentimes we might look at and we might say, what's going on here? Now, really quick, we sometimes mix these things up. Jesus did not sin, but Jesus was tempted. In this moment, the enemy showed up to tempt Jesus. Can I really quick tell you that there's times that we face temptation and we immediately feel a guilt as though we have sinned. You haven't sinned. You face temptation. Temptation's normal. Temptation's something that happens. I mean, again, for Jesus, what a human experience for him to have. That he would face temptation in this moment. I mean, when I think about this, it makes me think about people that I've watched in life and that sort of a thing who almost start to feel a little bit superhuman. They feel untouchable. They feel like they couldn't do anything wrong or nothing bad could happen to them. For me, at least, over the last few months, I was watching the NBA Finals. I know that we don't like the NBA around here because the Sonics went to the Oklahoma City and then they decided to win. It's terrible. I'm still holding out hope. They did say this week that they're starting to think about expansion. The Sonics will come back. That's a message for another day. That won't be for the sake of the gospel, but will be for the sake of some fun basketball to watch. But I still like the NBA. I still like watching it. So I was watching the finals this year and was watching the Indiana Pacers go on just this crazy road all the way to the finals, all the way to Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And throughout this entire series, there's this guy, if you don't know his name's Tyrese Halliburton, who kept hitting just the most incredible shots. He kept winning games for people time and time again. It was insane to see it happening. And honestly, it got to the point that you just thought to yourself, this guy, it's just destiny. He's going to lead this team to defeat the evil Oklahoma City Thunder so that they can win a championship. And then, in the first quarter of Game 7, he blows his Achilles and is out for the game. It's insane. I love the fact that I just got to introduce so many of you to that. That's awesome. He ends up blowing his Achilles. And they look, and you look at it, and you look at how the game plays out, and you're like, if this guy could have played the whole game, they most likely win. They most likely end up getting a championship. But you look at this untouchable figure who you just thought it's a time of destiny, and then he became human. Can I just tell you tonight, then we read about Jesus in this moment, I am in no way trying to not make him God. He is most definitely God. But can I also help you realize tonight, he is very much so also human. He lived the experiences that you and I have. Sometimes we build up Jesus' experience as if he lived a life with no issue, with no struggle. We act like it was just all daisies and good times for him and that sort of a thing. But when you look at the life of Jesus, he faced true hardship, and he faced temptation. In this moment, we end up seeing that the devil shows up and tempts Jesus in 3 ways. Yet really quick, I also want to point something out, because this story, we twist it, we augment it sometimes. Because we look at it and we end up saying, oh, look at this. Of course, the devil would show up when Jesus was hungry and tired and alone, and that's when he's going to show up to tempt him. Can I tell you really quick, the Spirit did not lead Jesus to pray and fast to set him up for failure when it came to being tempted. The Spirit led him to the place he needed to be so he could be close to the Father, so he could end up saying no to the temptation. This story, we give the devil too much credit so many times. Because we look at it and we end up saying, oh my goodness, the devil, this is great timing. If there was any time to try to tempt Jesus, this was the time. No, it wasn't. Because this was the time when for 40 days, his sole focus was looking to his Father and saying, what do you have for me? So that then when the temptation rose up, he was able to say, no. You see, I think there's times in our lives that we face difficult circumstances and difficult situations. We end up feeling empty, and we think that it's setting us up for failure, but the reality is it's giving us an opportunity to draw close to God, so that when we face challenge, when we face difficulty, we're close to the one who actually can get us through it. So Jesus was not led to a place for failure. He was led to a place where he would end up having victory and have an ability to see what would happen. And so tonight, really quick, for Jesus, when he was fasting, when he was praying, I want to point out something. He was tempted. How was he tempted? He was tempted in 3 ways. The first way that Jesus was tempted is he was tempted physically. Was he hungry? Oh yeah, 40 days. Oh my goodness, 40 minutes. There's some of us, we're going to start thinking about dinner approaching pretty soon, and we're going to start being hungry. We're going to be like, Caleb, I'd better wrap this up. I can't take it. He's tired. He's hungry. It's reasonable. It's understandable. The devil wants to do the same thing. The enemy wants to tempt us physically. The enemy wants to look at us with our physical desires and urges and things like that, that are what? That are very human, that are very, in many ways, understandable. But we look at those things and we say, do those guide us, or do we let the Lord lead us? Do those things get to determine what we do, or does he? Because in this moment, you end up having it where Jesus, what could he have done? He could have looked, and he could have said, to these rocks become bread, and he could have eaten. But that's not his source. Just because he could didn't mean he should. Just because he could did not mean that was the answer. So for us, can we acknowledge something? There's times that we need to pray and we need to fast. Why? So we can overcome physical temptation. So that we can look at ourselves, we look at our body, and we are saying that to our physical nature, you are submitted to what God has for me. And we look and we walk in this building discipline and that sort of a thing. Jesus, he was tempted physically. I don't know if you've had times that you've looked around and you said, I don't know why I keep doing certain things. Well, it's because you now have to have the strength and the courage and the boldness and the ability to say no. Jesus could have, but he said no. I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do. Don't twist those words tonight as if I'm saying, so just go and fast for 3 days, and then it's going to be like, oh my goodness, I have no problems. But it's saying you have the ability to do it when you are near to the Father and you're seeking him out. So Jesus, he's tempted physically. What's the next thing he's tempted in? He's tempted relationally. Would God actually care for him? Yes. Should he test him? No. Why? Because that's not a real relationship. If you have to put the relationship to a test to see if the person will fail you, that doesn't mean you really trust them. That doesn't mean you're really doing life with them. It doesn't mean that you're actually seeing what they have in store for you. So in this moment, Jesus, what's he facing? He's about to face the most isolated time in his life. He's about to face the most difficult time in his life. Yet as the enemy looks and he says, well, will God really care for you? Throw yourself down and see how he'll save you. Why does Jesus have to say no in this moment? Because it's not about him not trusting his Father. It's about him knowing that the Father cares for him. For us as a church, you heard it earlier on, we take time, and usually when we have more time, I explain it just a little bit more, but we take time to talk about the Lord as our provider, not because we're here praying that, oh my goodness, let's all have Lamborghinis and be millionaires. That's not the prayer. We know, though, that God cares for our needs. And there are very real needs, and there's moments that we have to remember, Lord, in the face of difficult times, I know you do care, and I know you do provide. It doesn't mean that we take shortcuts and we start to test him, and we start to see what would happen. It's that we look and we say, Lord, I know you're there for me. Can I just say that this is a sneaky temptation that many of us end up struggling with? That we do end up looking at God and we say, well, God, if you will do this, then I will trust you. God, if you do this, if you save me from this, if you deliver me from this, then I will know you are good. That's not a real relationship. It wouldn't be good if I went, and for me and Sierra, if I just started to test her every week, being like, well, I just wanted to see if you actually cared about me. That would be a toxic relationship. That would not be healthy. That would not be good. It's actually looking and saying, we are together in this, which means there's trust. So Jesus, he was tempted relationally, and he responded saying, I will not test the one who I know cares for me. All right, I got to keep going. Got to keep moving. We got dinner. All right, third thing. How else was he tested? He was tested in a worldly way. He was tested with power. He was tested with opportunity. You see, does God have a purpose for Jesus? Yes. Should he take a shortcut? No. Oftentimes, we are tested with world-focused shortcuts in our life. What was Jesus about to face the moment that he left this time of trial and testing? He was going to face the proclamation that the kingdom of heaven is near and that he is going to one day have to carry a cross up a hill and die, but will rise 3 days later. He is having to consistently teach and prophesy of the worst day of his life being the salvation for humanity. And in this moment, the enemy looks. Imagine this. It's one of actually the most dramatic scenes in Scripture that we skip over. That it says that Jesus, the enemy, takes him to this high place and shows him all the kingdoms of the earth. Can you imagine that moment? I can't even imagine it. It would have been such a grand thing to see. And as Jesus looks and he sees it and he ends up hearing, I will give you a shortcut. I'll make it so they can all worship you as long as you worship me. You don't have to die on the cross. You don't have to go through all the pain. You don't have to deal with them rejecting you time and time again. I'll just give them to you. Let me give you a shortcut. And Jesus looks and he says, get away from me. Because he has a purpose, but he won't take a shortcut to get there. So often for us, has God given you a dream? Amazing. Let him be the one who sees it fulfilled. Do you want to succeed within business, within your family? Do you want to succeed personally? Do you want to see things happen in your life? Don't take the shortcut just because you're trying to make it be what you want over what God has. Trust his plan, trust his path, and trust what he is up to. Jesus had to. I can't imagine that moment. That moment where he says, "Be gone," was the moment that he sealed his future. And he knew there's only one destination now that gets me to the goal. And it was the only path that ever was going to actually get him there. But he fled from it, and he stepped in and said, "Lord, what do you have for me?" You see, in this moment, we look at fasting, then what's it about? It is to be close to the Father. It is to be close to God so that we can flee from temptation and we can step into all that he has. Yet, we do see that Jesus, he is questioned about fasting in Matthew chapter 9, 14 to 17. And I want to make sure we look at this verse when we're talking about fasting because it's one that people will ask questions about. So it says this. Then John's disciples, speaking of John the Baptist, who had come before Jesus and had been preaching about Jesus arriving, John's disciples came and asked him, "How is it that we and the Pharisees fast often, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus answered, "How can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he is with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, then they will fast. No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse. Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst. The wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved." So why don't they fast? They don't fast because in that moment, in that time, they were as close, flesh and blood, to Jesus as they ever could be. Jesus in this moment is quite literally looking and saying, your old understanding of fasting will not suffice for what they now will need to fast for in the future. That he's looking and saying, you have an understanding of God that is now shifting and it's changing at this time. That's why he's talking about this old patch on the unshrunken patch onto shrunken clothes. It's because if you take something that was simply a practice and you stamp it with Jesus and what Jesus is doing, all it's going to do, it's not going to work because they haven't realized the new thing yet. And so for his disciples, because Jesus was so close to them, they didn't take time to fast at that time. But oh my word, we see, did they fast after he left? Because they craved to be close to him. They desired to be near to him. So they continued to fast once it was, but now they realized the fullness of who they were pursuing after. The purpose of fasting is not to be a magic list of practices we do to get what we want. We do not fast to go to God to say, I'm going to grab your ear and I'm pulling you down so you can hear me loud enough now. It's so that we can look and we can say, God, I want to be close to you. I want to be near to you. It actually ends up having it where our heart starts to turn because now we are closer to him and we can now hear more clearly from him. It's actually letting him get into our ear so we can hear what he has to say. Jesus looks and he says, they're not fasting. Why? Because they can hear me right now, but there will come a time they need to. So why do we fast then? What's the heart behind this? And I'm going to actually invite Parker, if you just want to play the keys behind as we get ready to close this out tonight. Why do we fast then? Well, first we fast to be close to God. We fast to be close to God. When we fast, it's from a desire of wanting to be close to him. I've been talking about that for the last 2 weeks, but that must be where it begins with. Again, I'm all for fasting. This week, though, can I encourage you, don't fast for your church. Again, we got stuff we're praying for as a community, as a church. We're desiring to see God do things. We want open doors to do a morning gathering. We want to be able to do more things for missions. We want to serve our community in more ways and all those things. That's great. But you know what? I don't want you to spend that time fasting and saying, Lord, do something for Saint Church. I want you just to get close to him. Because as you get close to him, what's he going to do? He's going to do things in your life. That's what we care about. That's what we desire. God builds his house. God cares for his church. I want you to be close to him because you're his child and he cares for you. So when we fast, it is to be close to him. The second thing it is to be prepared by him. It's to be prepared by God. Why did Jesus fast? He fasted to be close to the Lord and to be prepared for what was ahead. To be prepared for what was ahead. It was so that when the enemy did show up to tempt him, to try him, he needed to be ready for it. So that he then could step out in boldness. He could step out. It wasn't a response. There's times in our lives, and I'm not saying that fasting in response to something, if you're somebody who's ever heard news that has troubled you and it has driven you to prayer and fasting, yes, amazing. That is biblical. I'm not saying that's bad. But I'm saying that we also see for Jesus in this time, we sometimes fast in response, but that should not be our only way of fasting. We also fast in preparation. There's times that we have felt prompted, Lord, I need to be praying tonight. Lord, I want to be in my word right now. Lord, I want to start fasting right now. Lord, I want to get to church more often, things like that. And you start to look around and you start to think to yourself, well, it's just me. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to fast. So it might just be that the Lord actually is placing things on your heart so that you don't have to do it in reaction, but in preparation. So that you can do it to be prepared for what lies ahead that he is already aware of. You see, we have to understand that when you end up having someone like a mentor, right? If you have a mentor, you have a coach, you have somebody who's trying to train you up in something, it's not supposed to be a one-way relationship. It's supposed to be in unison with one another. It's supposed to be something where you're being built up, you are growing, but also then, what are they getting to do? They're getting to see that growth. They're getting to see that relationship. They're getting to see what's actually happening. They get to cheer you on in the fruit of what's happening. Why do we fast? Because we want to be close to the one who is leading us and guiding us and shaping us. We want it to be a moment where he would look and he would say, oh my goodness, they're becoming more like me. Jesus demonstrated it for us. What can we do with it? And the final thing we see for Jesus, why do we fast? It's not just to be close to God, not just to be prepared by God, but it's also to fight for God. It is. It is. It's also so that we can fight for the Lord, for the things that he has called us to, so that we can stand. Now, really quick, not against people. We're so good at wanting to put names and faces to enemies. People are not our enemy. We read in Scripture that our war is not against flesh and blood, but it is against the enemy. It's against the devil. It's against the spiritual forces that would try to stop the things that God is doing. You might say, Caleb, that sounds really supernatural. That sounds a little bit different. We believe, if you believe this book, we believe that a man was the Son of God and he died on a cross 2,000 years ago and he rose from the dead and he ascended to heaven and it changed all of human history really quick. That's the biggest step of faith you have to take. So when we look around and we think about this idea of having to fight for God, it's so that we can fight for him on behalf of him and also fight for others. So when you take time and you're praying and you're fasting, there's moments that it starts out with, God, I just need to be close to you. And then there's moments that you get close to him and then it becomes, God, I want to know what you have for me. And then it starts to be, God, I want to know the things that you want me to notice so I can speak life to them. We fight different. We don't fight by badgering people and belaboring people and looking at them and just saying, if I just hit you enough times with this Bible, you're going to get it. No. We fight by speaking the life of Jesus into their circumstance and into their world. It's so that we can be prepared for it. And guess what? Sometimes those people, they're the coworkers that you look at and you're like, I hope you get fired next week. Sometimes they're the coworkers that you look at and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. The manager that you think just doesn't do anything right. It might be the family member that you're just like, man, we have a family gathering coming up and I hope they don't show up. Whatever it may be, it's those people that you got to look at and you have to say, oh my goodness, Lord, are they someone I'm supposed to fight for? Some of y'all need to start fasting before you go to work. Some of you need to start fasting before Thanksgiving. Because some of you know why I'm saying that. And you got to take some time to say, Lord, prepare my heart so I can step into those moments and I can represent you well. See, why do we fast? What's this point us to tonight? And I'm going to wrap up right here. I'm like right on time. I love it. I can pat myself on the back one time a year. Why do we fast? What do we see from Jesus? We see that Jesus doesn't just say fasting matters. He demonstrated the necessity of it. He demonstrated the necessity of it. He did it. He lived it out. He showed us that it is a necessity. It's something we must do. You might say, Caleb, I don't really want to fast. Well, that's okay. I'm not up here to try to tell you what you have to do. I'm just trying to show you what he showed us, what he has in store for us, what he desires to see shaped and formed in you and I. And this is a part of it. He demonstrated the necessity. So tonight, what I want to do is I want to invite you, just if you're able, just to stand with us for a moment.